Imagine a boy so frail from rickets that his legs could barely carry him, yet in his heart burns a dream of a field where every step defies fate itself. This was Bob Gibson, born Pack Robert Gibson on November 9, 1935, in the gritty, segregated streets of Omaha, Nebraska. His story begins not with a baseball glove, but with a body that seemed to betray him, a family weighed down by poverty, and a spirit that refused to break. This is the tale of how a sickly child became a legend, one determined step at a time. The Omaha of the 1930s was a city of sharp divides. Black families like the Gibsons lived in the near North Side, a neighborhood where opportunity was scarce and prejudice was as common as the dust kicked up by passing cars. Bob was the youngest of 7 children, born to Victoria and Pat Gibson. His father died of pneumonia 3 months before Bob's birth, leaving Victoria to raise her children alone in a world that offered little mercy. The family lived in a cramped, weathered house. His older brother, Josh, became his first hero. Josh was 23, a towering figure in the community, a coach who ran a local youth program for black kids. He taught Bob to throw a ball, to swing a bat, to channel his frustration into something tangible. But tragedy struck early. In 1947, when Bob was 12, Josh collapsed and died of a heart attack. The loss was a gut punch. Bob carried that grief like a stone in his pocket, a reminder of how fragile life could be. Yet, Josh's lessons stuck. He had shown Bob that sports could be a way out, a way to fight. By the time Bob reached high school at Omaha Technical High, he was no longer the frail boy of his early years. His legs, once weakened by rickets, had grown strong through sheer will. He discovered basketball first, his lanky frame and quick reflexes making him a standout on the court. Baseball came next, almost by accident. A neighbor's pickup game in a dusty lot introduced him to the sport. The crack of the bat, the sting of the ball. Creighton University, a Jesuit school in Omaha, offered that chance in 1953. Bob enrolled, majoring in sociology, but his heart was on the court and the diamond. At Creighton, he became a basketball phenom, averaging 20 points a game and setting records for rebounds. His baseball skills sharpened too, his fastball gaining speed, his control tightening. Scouts noticed. In 1957, the St. Louis Cardinals came calling, offering a contract. But basketball still pulled at him. That same year, the Harlem Globetrotters, the legendary exhibition team, invited him to join their ranks. For a young black man from Omaha, the Globetrotters were a dream, a chance to travel, earn money, and perform on a global stage. Bob signed with the Globetrotters, playing part-time while still under contract with the Cardinals. The experience was a whirlwind. He dazzled crowds with his athleticism, but the clowning style of the Globetrotters clashed with his fierce competitiveness. His mother, Victoria, watched from afar, her pride tempered by worry. She'd seen too many dreams crushed, too many lives cut short. Bob carried her strength, Josh's lessons, and his own burning ambition. The boy who couldn't walk had become a man ready to run, straight into the heart of Major League Baseball. But the path ahead would be anything but smooth. The majors were a crucible, and Bob Gibson was about to be tested by fire. The moment the baseball left his hand at Busch Stadium, Bob Gibson felt the world shrink to a single point, a blazing spark of rage and determination. It was April 14, 1959, his debut in Major League Baseball with the St. Louis Cardinals. A 23-year-old from Omaha standing on the mound, staring down batters who doubted him, a crowd that whispered his name with curiosity and skepticism. This was no minor league field in Georgia. This was the big stage, where every pitch could make or break a man. For Bob Gibson, it was the start of a journey that would test his skill, his heart, and his ability to rise above the storms of prejudice and failure. The road to that first pitch was anything but smooth. After signing with the Cardinals in 1957, Bob had spent 2 years grinding through the minors. Columbus, Georgia was a harsh proving ground. The segregated South greeted him with hostility. Restaurants that refused service, motels that turned him away, teammates who kept their distance. On the field, though, he was a force. His fastball, clocking in the mid-90s, was a weapon. His slider, a vicious curve that seemed to defy physics, left batters flailing. By 1959, his record in the minors, solid if not spectacular, earned him a call-up to the majors. But the majors were a different beast. The competition was fiercer, the scrutiny relentless, and for a black player in a still segregated sport, the stakes were higher than the scoreboard. Bob's debut against the Los Angeles Dodgers was a baptism by fire. He entered in relief mid-game with the crowd buzzing and the air thick with tension. His first pitch was a statement, a fastball that screamed past the batter. But nerves and inexperience showed. He gave up 2 runs in 2 innings, a humbling start. The Cardinals lost, and Bob's stat line was forgettable. Critics were quick to pounce. Was this kid from Omaha ready? Could he handle the pressure? Bob didn't care for their doubts. He cared about the mound, the ball, and the next chance to prove himself. That season, he appeared in 13 games, starting 9, finishing with a 3-5 record. His earned run average was a modest 3.33, respectable but not dazzling. The numbers didn't tell the real story. Bob Gibson was learning, adapting, and burning with a fire that would soon ignite. Off the field, life was just as challenging. The Cardinals trained in St. Petersburg, Florida, where spring training in 1960 was a stark reminder of the world's divisions. One incident seared itself into Bob's memory. During a practice game, a group of white fans hurled racial slurs from the stands, their voices cutting through the humid air. Bob, standing on the mound, gripped the ball tighter, his jaw clenched. He didn't respond with words, he let his pitches do the talking. A 95-mile-per-hour fastball silenced the batter, and the crowd's jeers faded. But the anger stayed with him, a fuel he'd learned to harness. Teammates like Curt Flood, another black player, became allies, sharing stories of resilience. Bob wasn't alone, but he felt the weight of being a trailblazer in a sport still grappling with integration. 1961 brought more challenges. Bob's record slipped to 13-12, and his inconsistency frustrated manager Johnny Keane. He'd dominate one game, striking out 10, then struggle the next, walking batters or giving up home runs. His temper didn't help. Bob was fierce, unapologetic, and quick to confront anyone, umpire, opponent, or teammate, who crossed him. Keane saw the potential but demanded control. "You've got the arm," he told Bob, "but you need to pitch with your head, not just your heart." Bob listened, but his heart was hard to tame. He spent hours studying hitters, memorizing their stances, their weaknesses. His slider grew sharper, his fastball more precise. By 1962, he was starting to turn heads, finishing with a 15-13 record and a 2.85 earned run average. Amid the grind of baseball, Bob's personal life took root. In 1959, he met Elizabeth Ann Gibson. No relation, just a twist of fate. She was a schoolteacher, warm and grounded, with a smile that could cut through his intensity. They married in 1960 and soon welcomed their first son, Christopher. Family gave Bob an anchor, a reason to keep pushing. Elizabeth understood his fire, his need to prove himself. She'd sit in the stands, cheering quietly, while Bob battled on the mound. But life wasn't all victories. The road trips were grueling, the pay modest, around $12,000 a year. Bob and Elizabeth lived frugally, saving for a future that felt uncertain. On the field, 1963 was a breakout. Bob won 18 games, lost 9, and posted a 3.39 earned run average. His control was improving, his confidence soaring. He earned his first Gold Glove Award, a testament to his athleticism as a fielder. One game against the Chicago Cubs stood out. On a sweltering July afternoon, Bob threw a complete game shutout, striking out 12 and allowing just 3 hits. The crowd roared as he walked off the mound, his glare daring anyone to challenge him. It was a glimpse of the pitcher he'd become, a warrior who treated every game like a duel. The next year, 1964, loomed large. The Cardinals were contenders, and Bob was no longer the rookie fighting for a spot. He was a cornerstone, a pitcher who could change the game with a single throw. But the pressure was immense. The National League was stacked with talent, hitters like Hank Aaron and Roberto Clemente, pitchers like Sandy Koufax and Don Drysdale. Bob respected them but feared no one. His mindset was simple. The mound was his, and no one would take it. As the season rolled on, the Cardinals climbed the standings, and Bob's arm became their weapon. By October, they were headed to the World Series against the New York Yankees. Bob Gibson, the kid who'd fought sickness and scorn, was about to step onto baseball's biggest stage. The storms of his early years, racism, doubt, inconsistency, had forged him. Each pitch was a defiance, each strikeout a rebuttal. He wasn't just playing for wins, he was playing for his family, for Omaha, for every kid who'd been told they weren't enough. The World Series would be his proving ground, a chance to show the world what Bob Gibson was made of. But that's a story for another day, when the lights burned brighter and the stakes were higher than ever. What if one season could rewrite the rules of a game, and one man could hurl a baseball like lightning straight into the heart of his rivals? In 1968, Bob Gibson did just that, crafting a season so extraordinary it forced baseball to change forever. Standing on the mound, his eyes locked on the batter, he wasn't just pitching, he was waging war. This was the peak of his career, a time when his name became synonymous with dominance, fear, and an unyielding spirit that burned through every obstacle. From World Series heroics to a record-shattering year, Bob Gibson's journey in the mid-1960s was a saga of triumph, grit, and a fire that no one could extinguish. The stage was set in 1964 when Bob, now 28, stepped into the World Series against the New York Yankees. The St. Louis Cardinals were underdogs, facing a powerhouse led by Mickey Mantle and Whitey Ford. Bob's intensity defined the series. In Game 5, he pitched 10 innings, allowing just 4 hits and striking out 13, securing a 2-1 victory. In Game 7, exhausted but unbowed, he threw a complete game, giving up 3 runs but clinching the championship for St. Louis with a 5-2 win. His performance, 2 victories, a 1.89 earned run average, and 31 strikeouts, earned him the World Series Most Valuable Player award. The kid from Omaha had arrived, his name etched in baseball history. But this was just the beginning. The years that followed were a masterclass in consistency. In 1965, Bob won 20 games, lost 12, and posted a 3.07 earned run average. He earned his second Gold Glove, diving for grounders and turning double plays with the agility of an infielder. 1966 was even better. 21 wins, 12 losses, and a 2.44 earned run average. His fastball, now consistently hitting 95 miles per hour, was a blur. His slider, a wicked dart that broke late and left batters swinging at shadows. Opponents like Hank Aaron and Roberto Clemente, legends in their own right, spoke of Bob with a mix of respect and dread. Aaron once said, "Hitting against Gibson is like trying to hit a ghost." Bob's glare from the mound was as much a weapon as his pitches, intimidating hitters before the ball even left his hand. 1967 brought another World Series, this time against the Boston Red Sox. Bob was at his peak, a 31-year-old force of nature. In Game 1, he threw a complete game shutout, striking out 10 and allowing 6 hits in a 5-0 rout. Game 4 was a masterclass. Another complete game, a 1-0 nail-biter where he outdueled Boston's Jim Lonborg. In Game 7, he went the distance again, giving up 2 runs and striking out 10 to secure a 7-2 victory and the championship. His World Series stats were staggering: 3 wins, 3 complete games, a 1.00 earned run average, and 26 strikeouts. He was named Most Valuable Player again, a rare feat. But triumph came with a cost. During the regular season on July 15th, a line drive from Roberto Clemente struck Bob's right leg, fracturing his fibula. He pitched through the pain for 3 more batters before collapsing. Doctors said he'd miss months. Bob returned in 6 weeks, his will defying medical logic. Then came 1968, the year of the pitcher. Baseball was in a pitching golden age, with hurlers like Denny McLain and Juan Marichal dominating, but Bob Gibson stood above them all. His season was a monument to excellence: 22 wins, 9 losses, and a 1.12 earned run average, the lowest in modern baseball history for a starter with over 300 innings. He threw 13 shutouts, a mark that still stands as one of the greatest in the sport. In 34 starts, he completed 28 games, striking out 268 batters. From June 2nd to July 30th, he allowed just 2 earned runs over 92 innings, a stretch of near perfection. His no-hitter against the Pittsburgh Pirates on August 14th was a clinic. 11 strikeouts, no walks, and a crowd left speechless. The National League Most Valuable Player Award and the Cy Young Award were his, undisputed. Baseball's rules changed after that season. Mounds were lowered, strike zones tightened, because Bob Gibson and his peers had made hitting too hard. Off the field, the world was turbulent. The civil rights movement was at its peak, and Bob, as a black star in a white-dominated sport, felt the weight. He and teammate Curt Flood pushed against segregation within the Cardinals, demanding equal treatment in housing and travel. Bob's anger at injustice fueled his performance, but it also isolated him. Teammates admired him but kept their distance. His intensity was a wall few could breach. At home, his marriage to Elizabeth was strained by long road trips and the pressure of fame. Their second child, a daughter named Renee, brought joy. But Bob's focus on baseball left little room for softness. He was a man driven by a need to prove himself, to silence doubters, to honor his mother and his late brother Josh. The 1968 World Series against the Detroit Tigers was Bob's ultimate stage. In Game 1, he set a record with 17 strikeouts, shutting out Detroit 4-0. His fastball seemed to defy gravity, his slider untouchable. But the series went to 7 games, and in the finale, Bob faltered. Exhausted from carrying the Cardinals, he gave up 4 runs, and Detroit won 7-1. The loss stung, a rare crack in his armor. Yet, his legacy was untarnished. He'd thrown 3 complete games, struck out 35, and posted a 1.67 earned run average. The world knew Bob Gibson was a titan. The years that followed saw more milestones. In 1971, he threw a no-hitter against the Pirates, his first and only, with 10 strikeouts and a 3-0 win. In 1974, he became the second pitcher in history to reach 3,000 strikeouts, a testament to his longevity. But the fire that drove him also cast shadows. The racism he faced never fully faded, and the physical toll of pitching, hundreds of innings, thousands of pitches, began to wear on his body. His leg, once broken, ached in cold weather. His arm, a cannon, started to tire, yet Bob Gibson never backed down. The mound was his battlefield, and he was a warrior to the end. As 1968 faded into memory, Bob stood at the pinnacle of his sport. But glory is fleeting, and the years ahead would bring new battles, some on the field, some within himself. The man who redefined pitching was about to face the storms of decline, loss, and the search for meaning beyond the game. Beneath the stadium lights, Bob Gibson was a king, his pitches carving legends into the annals of baseball. But in the quiet of his home, away from the roar of the crowd, he wrestled with demons that could break even a hero. The late 1960s and early 1970s were years of triumph for the St. Louis Cardinals' ace, but they were also a time when the weight of fame, the toll of injuries, and the fractures in his personal life began to cast long shadows. Bob Gibson, the unyielding warrior of the mound, faced battles off the field that tested his spirit as fiercely as any World Series duel. This is the story of a man at the height of his powers, grappling with the cost of greatness and the humanity beneath it. The late 1960s had cemented Bob's place as a titan. After his historic 1968 season, 22 wins, a 1.12 earned run average, 13 shutouts, he continued to dominate. In 1969, he won 20 games again, lost 13, and posted a 2.18 earned run average, earning his 6th consecutive Gold Glove for his fielding prowess. His fastball still burned at 95 miles per hour, and his slider remained a nightmare for batters. In 1970, he claimed his first Cy Young Award, going 23-7 with a 3.12 earned run average. A highlight came on August 14, 1971, when he threw a no-hitter against the Pittsburgh Pirates, striking out 10 in an 11-0 rout. It was his first and only no-hitter, a moment of perfection that left the Busch Stadium crowd roaring. By 1974, he reached another milestone, becoming only the second pitcher in history to record 3,000 strikeouts, a testament to his endurance. Yet the physical toll was mounting. The fractured fibula from 1967 never fully healed, aching in cold weather and after long games. His elbow and shoulder, battered by years of throwing thousands of pitches, began to protest. In 1972, his record dipped to 19-11, still impressive, but a sign of decline. By 1973, at age 37, he went 12-10, his earned run average climbing to 3.67. The Cardinals, too, were struggling, no longer the powerhouse of the 60s. Bob's body was betraying him, but his mind refused to yield. He'd glare at batters, daring them to hit, his intensity undimmed even as his fastball lost a tick of speed. Teammates called him Hoot, a nickname from his resemblance to a Western gunslinger, but behind the toughness was a man feeling the weight of time. Off the field, Bob's personal life unraveled. His marriage to Elizabeth, which had anchored him through the early years, began to crack under the strain of his career. The long road trips, the pressure of fame, and Bob's relentless focus on baseball left little room for family. In 1973, after 13 years of marriage, they divorced. The split was a quiet devastation. Their two children, Christopher and Renee, were caught in the fallout. Bob loved them fiercely but struggled to connect, his emotions buried beneath the same stoicism he brought to the mound. The divorce left him adrift, questioning his priorities. He turned inward, wrestling with guilt and a temper that sometimes flared too hot. In his autobiography, Stranger to the Game, published in 1994, he admitted to moments of anger and drinking, a way to dull the pain of losses he couldn't pitch through. The world around him was no kinder. Racism, though less overt than in his early years, lingered. In 1970, teammate Curt Flood challenged baseball's reserve clause, a system that bound players to teams like property. Bob supported Flood's fight, knowing the cost of defying the establishment. They faced backlash, but Bob's defiance was quiet, shown in his refusal to bow to anyone, umpires, managers, or fans who still hurled slurs. He carried the weight of being a black star in a sport slow to change, his success a rebuke to those who doubted him. Yet the constant fight took a toll, feeding a solitude that grew as his career waned. By 1975, Bob's final season, his body could no longer keep up. He started 22 games, finishing with a 3-10 record and a 5.04 earned run average, his worst ever. On September 3rd, he pitched his last game, a loss to the Chicago Cubs. At 39, he retired with a career record of 251 wins and 174 losses, 56 shutouts, and 3,117 strikeouts. His 9 Gold Gloves, 2 Cy Young Awards, and 2 World Series Most Valuable Player titles marked him as one of the greatest. But walking away wasn't easy. Baseball was his identity, his battlefield. Without it, who was he? Retirement brought new roles. Bob tried coaching, serving as a pitching coach for the New York Mets in 1979 and later for the Atlanta Braves. He managed a minor league team, the Albany Colony Yankees, in 1981, but the dugout didn't suit him like the mound. Broadcasting called next, his deep voice and sharp insights bringing games to life for listeners. He worked as a color commentator for Cardinals games, his love for the sport evident even as he critiqued modern players for lacking the grit of his era. Yet these roles felt like echoes of his past glory, not replacements for it. In 1985, Bob found love again, marrying Judy Ann Gibson. Their relationship brought stability, a second chance at family. Judy, warm and supportive, helped him reconnect with his children and later his grandchildren. Bob poured himself into philanthropy, supporting youth programs in Omaha, much like his brother Josh had done. He established scholarships at Creighton University, his alma mater, and spoke at community events, his presence inspiring kids who saw in him a reflection of their own dreams. His autobiography, co-written with Lonnie Wheeler, laid bare his struggles, racism, divorce, the pressure of being a black pioneer. It was a catharsis, a way to make sense of the storms he'd weathered. But the shadows lingered. Bob's health, battered by years of pitching, began to falter. His knees ached, his back stiffened. The anger that had fueled his greatness sometimes surfaced in sharp words or withdrawn silences. Friends described him as a man of contradictions, fierce yet generous, distant yet loyal. He'd sit for hours watching old games, reliving pitches, or talking baseball with his son Christopher, who played in the minors. These moments grounded him, reminders of why he'd fought so hard. As the 1970s gave way to the 1980s, Bob Gibson's name remained a beacon in baseball. His induction into the Hall of Fame in 1981 on the first ballot was a crowning achievement, with 84% of the vote. Fans still spoke of his 1968 season, of the World Series duels, of the no-hitter that silenced Pittsburgh. But Bob knew the cost of those triumphs, the pain, the losses, the nights spent wondering if he'd given too much to the game. He was a legend, yes, but also a man, carrying scars that told a story as powerful as his victories. The years ahead would bring one final battle, one that no pitch could win. Bob Gibson, the Warrior, was about to face his greatest challenge, with the same unyielding spirit that had defined him from the start. When pancreatic cancer claimed him in 2020, Bob Gibson didn't simply fade away. He left a baseball soaring through the air, a pitch for generations to catch. His life, a tapestry of triumphs, struggles, and unbreakable resolve, ended in his beloved Omaha, but his story reverberates in every stadium, every young player's dream, every crack of a bat. The final years of Bob Gibson's life were not defined by the mound, but by the quiet strength of a man who had faced the world's hardest pitches and still stood tall. This is the story of his legacy, a pitcher eternal, whose spirit continues to shape the game and inspire those who dare to defy the odds. After retiring in 1975, Bob Gibson didn't retreat from baseball. He redefined his place in it. The mound was no longer his battlefield, but the sport still called. In 1979, he joined the New York Mets as a pitching coach, sharing his hard-earned wisdom with young hurlers. His intensity hadn't softened. Players recalled his sharp critiques, delivered with the same piercing stare he once aimed at batters. But his guidance was gold, teaching control, strategy, and the mental toughness that had made him a legend. He later coached for the Atlanta Braves and managed the Albany Colony Yankees in 1981, a minor league team where he molded raw talent with the same fire he'd brought to the majors. Yet, coaching didn't ignite him like pitching. The dugout was a shadow of the mound, and Bob hungered for a different way to stay connected to the game. Broadcasting became his new stage. In the 1980s, Bob's voice, deep, deliberate, laced with the grit of Omaha, brought Cardinals games to life on radio and television. As a color commentator, he dissected plays with surgical precision, his insights revealing a mind that still saw every pitch as a duel. Fans loved his candor, his refusal to sugarcoat. He'd chuckle recalling his own battles, like the 17-strikeout masterpiece in the 1968 World Series. But he was quick to critique modern players for lacking the heart he'd poured into every game. Broadcasting let him stay close to baseball, but it also reminded him of a truth. The game had moved on, and he was now a voice from its past, not its present. His induction into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1981 was a crowning moment. Elected on the first ballot with 84% of the vote, Bob stood in Cooperstown, New York on July 26th, his family by his side. The plaque immortalized his achievements: 251 wins, 3,117 strikeouts, 56 shutouts, 9 Gold Gloves, 2 Cy Young Awards, and 2 World Series Most Valuable Player titles. His 1968 season, a 1.12 earned run average, 13 shutouts, remained a benchmark. The reason baseball lowered the mound in 1969 to give hitters a chance. Bob's speech was brief, his words measured but proud. He thanked his mother Victoria, his late brother Josh, and his teammates, especially Curt Flood, whose fight against baseball's reserve clause had echoed Bob's own battles against injustice. The hall was his, but he carried it humbly, knowing the scars behind the glory. Life after baseball brought new purpose. Bob's second marriage to Judy Ann Gibson in 1985 steadied him. Judy, with her warmth and patience, became his partner in a quieter chapter. They settled in Omaha, where Bob reconnected with his children, Christopher and Renee, and later welcomed grandchildren. He doted on them, his stern exterior softening in their presence. Christopher, who played briefly in the minors, shared his father's love for the game, and their late-night talks about baseball were a bridge across years of distance. Bob's philanthropy grew, rooted in the lessons of his youth. He funded scholarships at Creighton University, where he'd starred in basketball and baseball, and supported youth programs in Omaha's near North Side, the neighborhood that had shaped him. He wanted kids, especially those facing poverty or prejudice, to see a path forward, just as his brother Josh had shown him. His autobiography, Stranger to the Game, published in 1994 with Lonnie Wheeler, was a window into his soul. The book laid bare his journey, the sicknesses of childhood, the racism he faced, the anger that fueled his pitches, the pain of divorce. It wasn't just a sports memoir, it was a testament to resilience. Bob wrote of the 1964 and 1967 World Series, of out-dueling legends like Sandy Koufax, but also of quieter moments, his mother's pride, his children's laughter. The book resonated with fans who saw not just the pitcher but the man, flawed and fierce. He signed copies at events, his handshake firm, his smile rare but genuine. Health became his final opponent. In 2019, at age 83, Bob was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. The news was a blow, but he faced it with the same defiance that had defined his career. He underwent treatment, his body frail but his spirit unbowed. Judy and his family rallied around him, their love a counterpoint to the disease's cruelty. Bob rarely spoke of his illness publicly, but friends noted his quiet resolve. He'd watch Cardinals games from home, critiquing pitches, reminiscing about his no-hitter in 1971 or his 3,000th strikeout in 1974. Even as cancer weakened him, his mind stayed sharp, his memories vivid. On October 2, 2020, Bob Gibson passed away in Omaha, surrounded by family. He was 84. The baseball world mourned. Tributes pouring in from players, fans, and the St. Louis Cardinals, who called him a warrior who changed the game. The National League honored him with a moment of silence, and Busch Stadium dimmed its lights. His death came just weeks after the passing of teammate Lou Brock, another Cardinals legend, making the loss feel like the end of an era. Yet Bob's legacy endured. His records, 56 shutouts, a career 2.91 earned run average, still stood tall. His influence went beyond numbers. He'd shown black athletes they could dominate in a sport that once barred them, paving the way for pitchers like Dwight Gooden and Pedro Martinez. Bob Gibson's life was a pitch that never landed. He was the sickly boy who defied doctors, the black star who stared down racism, the pitcher who made batters tremble. His 24 home runs as a hitter, a rare feat for a pitcher, showed his versatility, his 9 consecutive Gold Gloves, his athleticism. Quotes from his peers echoed his impact. Willie Mays called him the toughest pitcher I ever faced. Hank Aaron said he threw with purpose, like he was fighting for something bigger. In Omaha, kids still play on fields he helped fund, chasing dreams he proved possible. His story lives in every young pitcher who grips a ball, eyes the plate, and refuses to back down. As the sun sets on a quiet Omaha evening, you can almost hear the echo of his fastball, the crack of a strikeout, the roar of a crowd. Bob Gibson didn't just play baseball, he redefined it with a spirit that will never fade. His legacy is a challenge to us all, to fight, to endure, to leave the world better than we found it.